coming to you live from the Putasos Podcast.
Oh no! Just slapped him like that!
All right, guys, Putasos Podcast, episode number 9. Episode number 9 at Sizzling Gogi, so we're doing our own dinner. This is Ernest. This is the guest of the day.
What's good? How's it going, guys? Excited to be here. Some of you might know me from bartending. Some of you might know me as the Beard from Beard and Stash in the house music scene. And some of you might know me from recently training and getting more into grappling and stuff. So whatever brings you here, glad you're here. Glad I could help support my friend Joe, and glad we could be here eating some good food and talking about something we're both passionate about.
Yes, sir. All right, so this card we're going to be going over what was supposed to be Stipe and John. This guy's a big old
Sad day.
Stipe rider. So Stipe pulled out, or John Jones pulled out, so that fight's off. So new main event is Jiri versus Pereira. And then
Still a banger of a fight.
Still a banger,
Still
bro.
a banger
Still
of
a
a
banger
fight.
of a fight. If you guys have never done a Korean barbecue, it's a cook your own.
Shout out Sizzling Gogi.
Shout out Sizzling Gogi, yeah.
Shout out Sizzling Gogi.
So we're gonna hop right into the card. Your main event is Jiri. Is it Prochazka? Did I pronounce that right? Jiri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira moved up from middleweight after getting the middleweight title. He lost it right back to Izzy, but he got the middleweight title. He's now up at light heavyweight. He beat Jen in his last fight by decision. So now he gets a title shot. Jiri's coming back after relinquishing the title, so kind of someone who wasn't supposed to lose the belt versus someone who's deserving of the title shot. But what's your initial thought when you look at this fight?
I think it's just going to be everything that the fans want and need in a big headlining title fight. Obviously, if you look at these guys' like records, it's like all knockouts for both guys, both sides. So they both like getting it done on their feet. And
Just make stuff exciting.
yeah, that's always a fan favorite, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to see the big knockouts. Everybody wants to see the highlight reel KO. And I think that we are, I mean, I don't want to jinx it because sometimes when you see a fight like this, it ends up lackluster. But I think we're in for a classic right here, honestly.
I think we're in for a really good fight. When I look at this fight up front, there's two things that I notice. Two things that stick out to me. One, you can already say it because they're both really good strikers, and so it's going to be a banger. But when I was looking at the fight and I was watching footage of both of them, the one thing that like really stood out to me was that Jiri gets hit a lot.
Yeah.
Like I was watching his fights versus Dominic Reyes, and then I was watching his fight
Glover.
Glover, and this guy just gets hit a lot.
Yeah.
And with a guy like Pereira, who's just an absolute sniper, I just don't really think that's a good thing.
I think that his power is even going to be more devastating in a weight class up, honestly, too, because of like how much we all saw that weight cut took out of him and stuff. He's like a massive dude, and he's cutting a lot of weight to get down to fight Izzy, you know?
Yeah. No, yeah, he's a big boy, and he even put on some weight since he decided he was going to go up and fight. But when I look at this fight up front, I lean towards Alex big time. He is the slight favorite in the fight. But I think styles make matchups, and I think that this is a perfect matchup for Pereira. I think Pereira's going to go in there. I think he's going to find it. I don't think Jiri's going to go out stupid, but I do think Pereira's going to find an opening before the championship rounds. I got Pereira by just stoppage, bro.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that, honestly. Not to mention, also, if you want to play it like a little bit of bad blood, Jiri beating Glover and stuff, everybody remembers Alex Pereira standing right there and staring down Jiri. Like, it was major foreshadowing, you know, like that they were going to clash sometime in the future.
Yeah.
And if you remember, you know, Glover dropped Jiri on his hand with his hands, you know.
And then they went for a
and surprisingly, he was the one to get choked out. You know, I never saw it ending that way, and it was super, you know, sad to me because I was a huge Glover fan, and still am.
Yep.
But I think Alex is going to be coming in, looking to avenge his friend and training partner, you know, and I think he definitely has the tools to get it done.
Even if it doesn't end in a knockout, I don't think Jiri's the guy that's going to win a decision.
No.
You know?
Yeah, he kind of just is one of those lay it all out there guys. And, if he gets caught by Alex, like you said, he's going to the shadow realm. As pretty much anybody would.
Yep. So final call, you got
I got Alex. I'm gonna say third round knockout.
I'm going second or third.
Second or third.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that for sure. All right, this next fight is probably the one that, everyone's excited for it because it's the newest fight on the card. But that's Sergey versus Aspinall. So what makes this fight super exciting is both of them, I think the combined fight time between the two of them, it's like 3 minutes into the first round, like the average fight time for these guys.
Yeah.
So both of these guys are really good finishers, and not only are they good finishers, they finish fast.
Yeah.
So this is going to be hopefully it's not one of those lackluster kind of things, but I think we're in for a really good one on that one.
I think that we're looking at the future of the heavyweight division right there, pretty much,
Mm-hmm.
Even before the cancellation of Stipe and John Jones, we all knew that both of those fighters were coming towards the end of their careers.
Yeah.
John Jones had pretty much blatantly stated that he just wanted to go out after beating Stipe. And I mean, Stipe always denies hanging it up or anything, but his age is telling us enough already,
He's what, 37 or something like that?
I think he's 40 now.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So, he's definitely up there. So these guys are both young contenders, and they're both on a tear, and I think they both, are going to be fighting like they have something to prove because they both know what eyes are on them and what kind of potential they have.
So for Aspinall, he has 1 L on his UFC record, but it was just like that.
Where he hurt himself.
Yeah, he hurt himself. So they're basically both. I mean, Aspinall's damn near undefeated in the UFC. And then if you look at Sergey's last 3 wins, it was Curtis Blades.
Great win. Knockout.
Bam Bam. Tai Tuivasa. And then who was the other one?
Derek Lewis.
Derek Lewis. That was the one. So
3 huge knockout artists. I think that those wins are just telling to the evolution of what the heavyweight division is going to be going through in the next few years. I think that, it's the end of the era of just the big fat heavyweight, that it's,
that'll work no more.
There's truly,
DC was the last of a dying breed.
There's truly skilled players now that are walking around at 250, 260, athletic, and they're moving like, true martial artists now. They're not just relying on one punch knockout power. And it's more exciting because, you go back in the day to boxing, and when the great era of the heavyweight division, that's what makes the sport, puts more eyes on the sport. It's
the baddest man on the planet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I think this is a great matchup. Again, I think somebody's probably going to put somebody to sleep in there. I think that also stylistically, it's a super fun and exciting matchup because I see Sergey as this destroyer. He's like Francis Ngannou type guy, just relentlessly attacks and powerful and aggressive. And then you have Tom Aspinall, who I think's probably most well-rounded heavyweight outside of John Jones. He's young, he's technical, and he's got all the skills, whether it's standing or on the ground.
Yeah, he does, bro. My thought process on this fight is even though both guys are really big finishers, but they're obviously going to be aware of that going in. And just in general, when you look at a heavyweight fight, everybody has knockout power, so you kind of have to be aware of that at all times regardless. But I actually have Tom Aspinall by decision. That's what I'm thinking. And for me, also a big reason on that is it's a 3-rounder.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's a 5-rounder.
Oh, yeah, it's for the interim.
Yeah, this is a title fight.
It's for the interim. 5-rounder. I think that, Tom Aspinall is definitely a more athletic-looking build guy. And I think that, we've never seen either of them go deep rounds, but I think I'd expect him to have a little better conditioning just based off the way they fight. Francis Ngannou, if you can kind of compare Sergey to him, their builds are kind of similar, heavier muscled and stuff. Those type of builded guys don't tend to last quite as well into the later rounds. You know, they're more explosive. They kind of die out by the end. So if it goes late rounds, I could definitely see Tom outpointing him and tiring him out. I'm a big fan of Tom, and I personally am hoping he wins.
Me too.
I'm a fan of him. I could see it going either way, though. Honestly.
Yeah, I kind of hope Tom wins. And we have a couple other fights to go over, but real quick, before we go into those other fights, the last two fights that we talked about, the big topic of discussion was knockout power, right? Pereira, Jiri, Sergey, Aspinall, a bunch of knockout artists. So before we go on to the rest of the card, we're going to do a little segment.
Okay.
All right? I want to know who you think are your top 5 biggest knockouts of all time. UFC history.
All right.
All right, so top 5 knockouts. We're going to go from your 5th all the way up to your 1st.
All right.
So your least favorite out of the 5 up to your most exciting knockout. You want to go first?
Let's let you go first, and then I'll do the other segment first.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So for my knockouts, my number 5 knockout of all time is Holly Holm putting away Ronda Rousey. That one for me was just like, damn, like that was just such a crazy moment. Just left head kick up high, just put her out, bro. And that was like the end of an era. Ronda Rousey was dominating for so long.
Nobody thought it was going to happen either.
Bro,
nobody saw that.
I remember where I was for that fight too. And yeah, it was crazy. Number 4 for me was Francis Ngannou versus Alistair Overeem. That was just like, Ngannou has like a series of highlights, and he could probably take up all 5 spots on the list if you really wanted to do that.
Definitely.
But that one for me was just like, Overeem was like, bro, he could have killed him.
Yeah, it looked like he did, honestly. It was pretty scary.
Yeah. The third one for me, which made it on the list, another girl fight, is Amanda Nunes versus Chris Cyborg.
Ooh.
That was like a nasty walk-off KO. Like, she was just getting piece. And then she just fed her that right, and like you could just see her body hit the floor, bro. Like,
and honestly, who thought anybody could put Chris Cyborg to sleep?
I low-key thought Chris Cyborg was a man for the longest time.
I wouldn't want to fight her.
I wouldn't want to fight her, no way. But that was number 3 for me. That was more just because it was iconic. Number 2 was Masvidal versus Askren. That was, when it comes to like knockouts, I think this knockout's probably going to be on everybody's list. Maybe, we'll see. But Askren versus Masvidal, that was just sick. Right off the fence, hands down, ran forward, threw a knee, and put him out. And then fed him 2 more. That was a brutal knockout. And then my favorite, for anyone who knows me, they already know who my favorite fighter of all time is. Conor versus Aldo. The most iconic knockout of all of them. 13 seconds, left hand, dead. So that was fighter number 1.
I like your list.
Those are my 5.
I like your list a lot. There's
a lot on there I didn't put that I really wanted to put.
I bet.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I cheated a little bit when you told me to pick some my favorite KOs of all time. I really dug in and I watched videos all the way back from 1993 forward, and there's so many good ones. You know, like you forget about so many over the years.
Yeah.
And then you just like go down a rabbit hole. But I have a few honorable mentions that I'm going to put on here. And my list is basically a mixture of, personal preference. I think about what it did for the sport and also how technical and just savage it was in general. So on my honorable mentions, I have this one because it was just probably one of the coolest ones I've seen. Yuri Rodriguez with the reverse step back upwards elbow against Chan Sung Jung.
I don't even know.
Hail Mary, 5th round. Yuri was getting his ass beat the whole time.
I don't even know how
and he just stepped back, backwards elbow, and knocked him out. That one was wild.
Yeah, bro.
Okay, another honorable mention before I get into my top 5 is I have Anderson Silva just absolutely pimping Forrest Griffin, because I put this on there because he basically knocked him out like 3 times and let him get up and then finished him again. And it was just like, he was in the Matrix that night. You know, that was probably one of the greatest displays of martial arts any of us has ever seen. So that one's on there. And then I'm moving on to my top 5. For number 5, I have one that is with Joe here, and that's the night that Francis Ngannou decapitated Alistair Overeem. You know, he already talked about it. We all saw it. It was something to see. It was very brutal. I mean, you know, I don't think there's a person on the planet that could eat that punch and still be standing. You know, it was something crazy.
I probably lost like 8 years of his life.
Oh yeah, that changed him. So that's 5. Number 4. This one goes big into personal preference, and because I believe it was the birth of the first big superstar in UFC history, and that was Chuck Liddell knocking out Randy Couture for the title.
All right.
And, you know, being a Central Coast guy, Chuck was always my favorite fighter growing up, you know, and he's just a local legend, world legend, you know, fighting legend all around. And can't say enough good things about that guy.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. Number 3, which I am very surprised this one didn't make it onto Joe's list. Because for a long time, this was my favorite knockout of all time. Even though I'm now a huge fan of the guy that got put to sleep. Number 3, we have the Dan Henderson H-bomb against Michael Bisping.
Damn.
That one was...
I think it's because I love Bisping.
So I love Bisping. You know, I hated him growing up, honestly. I love Dan Henderson. He was an American dude. And Bisping was just a douchebag on freaking Tough. He was talking shit to Dan Henderson, and he got just nastily starched, and H-bomb dropped on his face. But nowadays, love Bisping, love what he did for the sport. I love his legacy. The end of his career was amazing to watch. And I'll move on to number 2.
That's solid.
Number 2, headshot KO Leon Edwards against Kamaru Usman.
Look at Sam over there.
You could attest to this, that I always thought Leon was gonna win.
You too.
I always said it. And even in the rematch, I still believe that Leon. I believed in him, that it was the elevation that took it out of him. And you know what? I believed in it all along. So that's number 2. That was like a true Rocky movie moment, you know?
Bro, yeah.
And I won some money on that fight, so that one's up there. And then the last one, I have it as a tie because one is only as great as the other. The most important knockouts in UFC history, Conor McGregor starching Aldo, and then Conor McGregor moving up and just piecing up Eddie Alvarez.
Yeah, bro.
That's my top 5.
You have to put that Conor Aldo one in there. Like, that was so iconic.
Yeah.
Dude. No, that's good. Those are good. Those are actually also.
It was tough. That was a tough list to make.
Yeah, and then I mean, since you did some honorable mentions, Edson Barboza.
Oh man, the spinning wheel kick. Yeah,
that was a good one. And then there was one that I didn't put on there that I almost did, and that was when Rashad Evans made Chuck Liddell turn into Jello.
I actually had that right here as tied for Chuck knocking out Randy.
Yeah.
I just forgot to say it. It's Rashad Evans knocking out Chuck. That was like the beginning and the end of the era, you know?
Yeah, it really was.
Crazy.
That
Crazy.
was wild.
It was so sad to see.
It was sad to see.
I never thought Chuck was ever going to lose.
Yeah, that was gnarly, bro. That was gnarly. So we're going to hop back into the card. The third fight on the card is going to be a women's strawweight bout. That's Jessica Andrade versus Mackenzie Dern. This one kind of had me torn apart a little bit because there's a lot of different ways that you can break down this fight, and there's a lot of different ways for both people to win. And then you always have to take into consideration how many rounds the fight is too. So as much as I want to go for Jessica Andrade, I am leaning towards Mackenzie Dern. Jessica Andrade does have championship fight experience. She has knockout power for a girl. and she's decent on the floor. But every time I watch Mackenzie Dern fight, even if when she lost, I think she lost once or twice.
Yeah, I think she has 2 losses on her
So
record.
close to finishing both of those fights. And
I feel like she's still getting better too.
and she is getting better, and her stand-up's getting better, too.
She's, she's like a surging prospect, and I feel like, Jessica's kind of like a travel woman at this point.
Yeah.
She's kind of like gatekeeper to the upper division,
Yeah,
and Mackenzie's kind of coming into herself right now.
she is.
It's
It's going to be a good fight, and I think really this is like one of the fights I look at that was a true like 50-50 toss-up for me. Because I really do think it can go either way, and I find a lot of different ways for both of them to win. So I got Mackenzie Dern by decision. I don't think she's going to get a finish.
I got Mackenzie Dern. I could see decision, but I wouldn't be surprised if she finished it on the ground.
Yeah.
She's pretty. She if you look at her record, she has a lot of submissions. I think she has 9, and she's a high level black belt.
High level black belt.
High level. I know Jessica also, is a black belt, but there's levels to this shit.
Oh yeah.
And she's good. So I could see her submitting her, but I could also see a decision. I'm definitely leaning towards Mackenzie Dern. Also, Mackenzie Dern.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a whole nother reel for that. All right, next one is a lightweight fight. It's a Matt Frivola. I don't want to butcher his name. Bonoy St. Denis, I think. But I know Matt Frivola, so Matt Frivola is ranked in the top 15. St. Denis is not ranked in the top 15. This is a good fight.
How many fights does St. Denis have in the UFC?
Matt Frivola is coming off they're both actually coming off really good W's. Matt Frivola just beat Drew Dober. Obviously, Drew Dober's the real deal.
Yeah,
Drew Dober's solid. And just every time I think of Matt Frivola, I just think of him getting absolutely starched by Terrence McKinney in 7 seconds.
Oh.
But I know that St. Denis is coming off a win too, if my phone would load. But he's coming off a solid win as well. Can you see it on yours? Oh, I'm on the Wi-Fi.
He just beat Thiago Moises.
Yeah, so Moises is legit.
I think we're okay right now. But can we get some short ribs?
But yeah, I like that fight.
That's what you want, right? Short ribs?
Yeah. I got Matt Frivola. This fight for me, I don't think they're too far apart in skill set. But I don't know. I think Matt Frivola will get it done by decision. 3-round fight. Better experience, better quality of opponents. So.
Yeah, so I think that, St. Denis is definitely less experienced. If I'm looking at his record here, he has a few UFC fights. But I mean, no real notable wins.
Royce's is a good win.
Decent. Yeah, that's probably his only notable one.
That's his best win.
Yeah, that's his best win for sure. I'm definitely going to go with Matt on this one. He's definitely starting to prove himself in the lightweight division, and we all know how stacked that division is.
That's a dumb stack division.
Definitely.
And Drew Dober's good.
Yeah, definitely. For a while there, I thought he was kind of towards the top of the division. But that top 5, top 6 of the lightweight division is just so difficult to crack into, I feel like.
It's really difficult.
There's just all killers, top 10, honestly.
Right. You're all good. But yeah, good fight there. I got Matt Frivola by decision. And then going into the last fight on the main card, you have Diego Lopes versus Pat Sabatini. So both of these guys are 1-1 in their last 2 fights. Diego Lopes lost his debut and then won his last fight. They're both, I guess you could say, like up and comers. I wouldn't say either of them are close to getting like a top 15 fight or anything. This is an interesting fight to put on the main card, but I just feel like I don't have too much info to like. I try to look up their fights and stuff, but not too much to dig from.
There isn't too much. I remember seeing a Diego Lopes fight on a
Look at this man's hair, dog.
Justin Bieber ass Brazilian.
Yeah, bro, I can't go for that guy. I'm going for Mr. USA.
Mr. USA. All right. He's got a better. I mean, the records are even pretty similar when you break it down ratio to win.
Yeah. That haircut's insane, bro.
Let's go with Sabatini.
Yeah, that's what I'm rolling with.
Sounds good for me.
I'm rolling with. All right.
And then there's one more I wanted to talk about on the prelims card.
All right, one more fight on the prelim card. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of fights on the prelim card, but there's one that you wanted to talk about specifically, so we'll go over it.
Yeah, Tabitha Ricci and Lupita Godinez.
Lupi Godinez.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on this one. Had to give a shout out to the Paragon competitor.
Yeah.
I train in Santa Maria Paragon. She is down in Ventura with the starter, Ricardo Frengia. She's a black belt under him. She's also a black belt in judo. I'm obviously, a little biased. I'm pulling for her for the win. She just cracked into the women's top 10 rankings, and I think she's got a bright future in the UFC.
Yeah, when you told me you wanted to go over this fight, I started digging a little bit. I was trying to figure out who was fighting. So Tabitha lost her debut, but since then she's on, I think it's a 3-fight win streak.
Yeah.
So I don't know, stage fright, whatever you want to call it, but she got the first one out of the way. She's on a tear right now. Lupi Godinez is doing good too, but the same thing with both of them. I would say it's not the highest level of competition.
And she's training out there with, she's training with the, I'm sorry, what's her name? She just fought Shevchenko and beat her again.
Oh, Grasa?
Yeah, she's training boxing with her,
Mexican.
so her stand-up's going to be good,
Yeah.
But
the only notable person I saw Lupi fight was Angela Hill, and she lost. And I wouldn't even say Angela Hill's top of the heap as far as the division. So I think it's a super winnable fight for Tabitha.
Yeah, definitely.
But like you said, Lupi's gonna be practicing. She's Mexican. She's gonna be throwing some putasos.
Yeah.
So if she could take it to the floor and kind of just put her in her world, then
they call her the baby shark.
Then she'll be all right. Talked about the last fight, the submission artist out of Ventura. So we did our top 5 knockouts. Now we're gonna do our top 5 submissions. I started the last one, so you can start this one.
I'll start
this one. These on the go too?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Get them going, and I'll start
I
talking.
never had the premium pork belly.
Bomb, huh?
It's fire.
So good.
I
I'll
like
get all
it.
this on there while I start talking about my list.
Yeah, I got it.
Alrighty. So, since I've been so into grappling and training lately, I found this even more difficult than the knockouts list because I was just really digging deep, and with the knockouts list, I had a few criteria, including how iconic it was for the sport, how iconic it was for the moment, how insane the submission it was itself, and how skillful it was. And then for this as well, I also took into account the size difference, if any, and the skill of the opponent that was submitted.
All right.
Because I think that's a huge difference, submitting a white belt and submitting a black belt are different things, completely worlds apart.
I never really thought of it that way.
It's completely different.
You could have looked at the same, lens from striking too, but no, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I did not take that into consideration.
Yeah. So with that in account, I'll start with my honorable mentions. My last honorable mention is I have Nate Diaz rear naked choking Conor McGregor. Just because I'm a huge Conor fan, just like Joe, also a huge Nate Diaz fan though.
Yeah.
And I just think that, that was the first time we saw Conor fall from greatness. And, it was unexpected. And it was by just in the true G way,
Straight up.
He
bro.
came in on short notice, the huge, massive underdog. I think he was 400 underdog
It was like a ridiculous.
And then he showed everybody what was up. He had been calling for that fight for like a year before, and he got it done. So that was an iconic moment. Another honorable mention I have, and this was because of just how crazy it was in general. Mighty Mouse with his suplex armbar.
That's an honorable mention.
It is. It is an honorable mention. That's an honorable mention. Yes, it's extremely sick.
Oh my god!
But Ray Borg isn't like the most high-level grappler in the world,
bro.
I have some good ones on here, dude. I have some good ones on here, bro. I have some good ones on here. So that's extremely iconic. Love that submission.
You're wild.
It's crazy. That's an extreme highlight reel, you know? Okay. I'll move on to my top 5.
Yeah.
Number 5, I have Hoist Gracie, triangle choking Dan Severn.
All right.
Dan Severn had like 60 pounds on him, I think. It was back in UFC 1, back in the day. And, you know, he was the face of the UFC. He's what made the world wonder about martial arts and, you know, putting it all together. So I had to put him on this list somewhere.
And he forced fighters to become well-rounded.
Exactly.
Because grapplers could take out strikers, but strikers were having a tough time.
Exactly.
You know, so West Gracie's like pioneer goat mountain of MMA.
Mm-hmm. And then to add on to that, Dan Severn not only was being a huge man, but he was also a shoot-style wrestler, catch-style wrestler. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, if you know anything in the modern era, the big weakness to jiu-jitsu fighters is good wrestling. So, yeah, back then they didn't know a lot of how to avoid a lot of the submissions and stuff, but the fact that he was a grappler and had significant weight advantage on him is all in more impressive, in my opinion.
That's your number 5?
That's number 5. Number 4, I just think this is was so disrespectful in the best way possible. And it was Young John Jones standing guillotine the legend Lyoto Machida. I mean, it was just so... Everybody knows just how he dropped him and just walked off. Like, so cold. It doesn't get nastier than that.
Bro.
It's crazy.
That was sick.
Crazy.
I'm excited to hear your top 3, bro.
3. This one, because it was the come from behind victory. And it was one that I didn't want to see, honestly. Backstory on this one, I watched this fight in college, and I was a broke college kid. And I bet too much money on this one that I didn't even have at the time. But I bet that Chael Sonnen was going to beat Anderson Silva in their first fight. And it was looking like he was going to until the 5th round when Anderson Silva drew up a fucking triangle choke. And, you know, I used to think that he got lucky with that. And, you know, that's a complete bullshit way of thinking. Now that I actually train jiu-jitsu and I know how much more difficult it is to lock in a submission like that when you are exhausted. And he wasn't just exhausted. He was getting his face smashed in by Chael Sonnen.
That's me.
And Chael Sonnen, also a very high-level grappler. Very high-level grappler. So for him to get caught in that while he was sweaty himself, it was just all the more impressive. And like I said, I didn't want to see that one happen, but it's still on my list. Number 2, I have BJ Penn moving up 2 weight classes for his fight against Matt Hughes, where he rear naked choked a big wrestler and was a huge underdog. And I mean, if you really think about it, he was the first champ, kind of.
He was, bro. And BJ Penn's like, he should have been a featherweight the whole time.
Everybody talks about it, how nobody denies that one point he was the best martial artist on the planet. He was the baddest man, pound for pound. Yeah. And I mean, if you look at some of his highlights, everybody can tell.
Number 1,
the guy that he did this to is a Marcelo Garcia black belt. Marcelo Garcia is one of the most highly praised jiu-jitsu athletes of all time. He basically helped develop the no-gi system and modern MMA jiu-jitsu. And I have Nate Diaz triangle choking, double middle finger, Kurt Pellegrino. I mean, everybody knows that. Everybody knows that moment. Like, everybody can picture that moment in their head. Double middle fingers to the opponent, win.
That's a good list, bro.
It was hard.
You went in on
it was hard.
Damn. My list kind of sucks now. All right. So my top 5 submissions, starting off with number 5. Anderson Silva putting away Chael Sonnen.
Sick.
Same thing, bro. Like, if you're getting your ass whooped the way he was getting his ass whooped,
Bad.
and lock that in and put him away, it was, bro, there was like less than a minute left, huh?
Yeah, it was a 5th round. I think there was a minute left.
Sonnen never tapped. He thought that if he tapped, the fight ended right there.
Yeah. He said, I never tapped. I never tapped.
My number 4 is Diaz putting away Conor. For me, that one, like you said, just like the fall of like a god at the time.
Yeah, everybody didn't think he would ever lose. I don't know. He was on such a tear.
He was on a tear, just obliterating everybody. So not only did like Conor still stay big, but it also created another superstar.
Yeah,
Diaz.
definitely.
And now
Which he would deserve to be a superstar the whole time.
Yeah, and now when he fights, I'm watching, bro.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who he's fighting. So for me, that was a huge one. Number 3, and the reason I really like this one, and I can kind of back it up on this one as far as like the person he did it to, was Khabib putting out Justin Gaethje.
Oh yeah.
The transition of his top mount transitioning to his back to a triangle, and keep in mind Justin Gaethje's a D1 all.
Oh yeah.
Like,
and he like respectfully transitioned from breaking his arm in an armbar to putting him to sleep with a triangle.
Bro. And like when you're talking a D1 wrestler, like that's no joke, bro. Like, think of like Josh Rodriguez. That's a D1 wrestler.
Yep.
Like, that's no joke.
It was extremely impressive. I almost had that one on my list, honestly. Yeah. I was watching video on that transition, and it's just so clean how he transitioned.
And it's like not like you said, like the fact that it was clean is one thing, but like if you're doing it that clean at that high of a level to a guy like that, that just shows how good you are at what you do.
Definitely.
My number 2 was John Jones leaving Machida lifeless on the floor.
It's so crazy, man.
The ref shook his arm. It was dead. He just dropped him, bro. Just dropped his carcass on the floor. So
dead, like a pile of meat.
Bro. That was just savage. Especially because Lyoto was actually giving him some problems in that fight, too.
And Lyoto was such a legend, too, you know?
And then my number 1, which was was honorable mention for you, disrespectful, was Mighty Mouse to Ray Borg. And the reason I like that one so much was, well, one, not only what he did, just he lifted him up, turned him, and then caught him midair before he even hit the floor. He had it locked in. But what I liked about it so much, and Mighty Mouse just talked about this on his podcast a couple of weeks ago, was how he loved doing things to fighters that they said that he couldn't do to them. So Ray Borg was saying, like, I'm a better grappler than Mighty Mouse. Nobody submits me. I'm going to take him down, impose my will, do that whole bit. And that did not happen. He actually got punked. So that was my number 1. That was just.
It was insane. It was a difficult list. Both of these were really hard to put together.
I had Zombies Twister in there.
Oh yeah.
Honorable mention. And there's a couple that I had in there that were just sick, but yeah, that was my top 5 list.
Nice. There's like so many that I wanted to include in there. The Khabib one, Charles Oliveira has a freaking. So many of them. Damian Maia has so many good ones. It was difficult. It was very difficult to pick just 5.
It really was. But these are fucking fire.
The short ribs? Mm-hmm. Joe with the call on the short ribs, man.
You're a bomb. Well, that's pretty much it.
I think that's it.
That's it, man. So went over the card, went over our top 5s. How long have we been recording?
43
minutes. Oh, damn. Shit popped in me right now. Oh. No, not yet.
What's the outro?
Outro, I will just go. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Putasos Podcast number 9. We'll see you next time. And then I just throw a punch at the camera.
All right.
So you just throw a punch at the camera, all right?
Me too?
Yeah. Just put it right at the camera. Not right now, but I'll say everything, bro. All right, guys, that was it. Putasos Podcast, episode number 9. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys as always. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on TikTok. I just made a TikTok. And then most importantly, follow me on YouTube and subscribe. That would really help me out. I appreciate the love. But that's Putasos Podcast, episode number 9. We are out. Boom. Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, all right. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. Putasos Podcast, episode number 9. Make sure to follow me on Instagram. I just launched a TikTok as well, so follow me on there. And then most importantly, subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. Ernest, thank you for coming on. Appreciate
Thank you, bro.
Always, brother.
Had fun.
Yeah, that's episode number 9, guys. We are out.